Mr. Walker, in your testimony, you referenced the mounting debt ceiling and Congress's failure to constrain our spending over time. While you point to a constitutional amendment as a potential solution, I find the greatest contributor to our out-of-control spending is a lack of accountability in our current budget process. It's hard to imagine what $6 trillion looks like, especially if that funding is packaged together instead of passed as 12 standalone bills. In addition, the debt ceiling is only addressed on an as-needed basis. So members could go for multiple terms or retire without having to raise the ceiling for their previous spending decisions. Ultimately, members of Congress are able to vote for high spending packages with few repercussions from the American people. What is the arguments for and against tying the debt ceiling to the appropriations process to improve accountability of Congress?
Well, first, let me tell you, I think the debt ceiling is a dismal failure. We're the only major country on earth that has a nominal debt ceiling. It hasn't constrained spending. It hasn't constrained mounting debt levels. It ought to be repealed, and it ought to be replaced with a constitutional amendment that focuses on what matters the most. How much debt do you have as a percentage of the economy? And why do I say that? Because it's pro-growth, because if you grow the denominator faster than the numerator, you're making progress, even if the numerator is going up. By the way, that's what we did after World War II, okay? And secondly, it doesn't tell the Congress how to solve the numerator problem. It doesn't say how much of it is mandatory spending, how much of it is discretionary spending, how much of it is revenue. You're gonna have to do all of that, okay? It doesn't tell you how to do that, but it says you just gotta do it. And if you don't do it, there's a consequence. So, you know, we need more fundamental reform in this area, including understanding the difference between capital budgets and operating budgets, you know, including needing to pass the budgets on time, the appropriations on time. I'm 73 years old, although my doctor tells me I'm more like 53. I hope she's right. You know, the fact is you know how many times in my lifetime we've passed all the appropriations bills on time? 4. It's an F minus.
And so I think I hear you saying we should just eliminate the debt ceiling argument.
But you have to replace it. You have to replace it. You know, the debt ceiling was supposed to constrain debt, right? And by the way, it goes all the way back to World War I, where we started having a problem. You know, but now it doesn't do that. It's a political football. It doesn't do anything at all. So we need to have something that will stand the test of time. You know, the debt break in Switzerland's a good example. There's several positive examples. But what really matters is how much debt as a percentage of the economy, how much interest as a percent of the budget, you know, what percentage of the budget is mandatory. Last thing on this, in 1913, you know what percentage of the budget was mandatory? 3%. And you know what that was? Interest on the debt. That was it. Yeah. Now it's 73. Mandatory.
Thank you for that. I'd like to get to at least one more question.
Yes, sir. Sorry, apologize.
Bocia?
Boccia.
Boccia, okay. I have the distinct pleasure of serving on the Budget Committee and the Appropriations Committee. I've been on the Appropriations Committee for about a year now. One of my particular frustrations, while I believe that the Appropriations Committees, the various subcommittees, are ultimately the folks that can best hold federal agencies accountable for their spending, I find it frustrating with 2-year terms and oversight meetings where every member gets a chance to quiz an agency leader for 5 minutes to really hold folks accountable. It seems to me like many times the agency heads are sitting before the members and they're thinking, as long as I can get through this 5 minutes, I'm okay. I'm good for 2 more years, there'll be another Congress. Do you have any thoughts about that or any ideas how we can hold the federal agencies more accountable for the spending? I know Congress appropriates it, but there's a lot of decisions made inside that appropriation.
Congress needs to work with these agencies throughout the year, not just in those hearings, and needs to heed especially the recommendations of the Government Accountability Office, which does the heavy lifting of figuring out where there are problems with accountability and transparency and what systems need to be upgraded so Congress has more insight into what's happening there, and also demanding more reporting, especially on emergency spending, which is still very much obscure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could go on for a long time, but I'm out of time, so I yield.
I thank the gentleman from the great state of North Carolina. Again, our prayers are with you and your friends and family back home. Mr. Rudy Yakum.
Mr. Chair, can I just add one?
Absolutely.
I heard somebody a while ago refer to, in their comments on disaster relief, referring to folks affected by the storm as coastal elites. I represent a district of 783,000 people, every one of which was affected severely by Hurricane Helene. Not one of them would I consider a coastal elite. Thank you. I yield.